control here. Yeah, give me 10 seconds and you'll be live.
Awesome. We will now call to order the Housing and Human Welfare meeting, September the 16th, 2024. It is 6:33 p.m. I'll first start with the roll call. Alderman Schandelmeyer.
Present.
Alderman Huntley.
Present.
Fantastic. And also welcome Alderman Huntley to the committee. This is your first meeting and we're excited to have you and your ideas on housing and just everything in general. Excited to have you here. Approval of the agenda, Alderman Schandelmeyer, if you would make a motion to approve.
I will make a motion to approve the agenda.
Alderman Huntley, if you would second that.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Oh.
Aye.
I forgot actually. Caitlin, R4424.
I sent you the revised agenda. It's the first.
Okay. Thank you. So we're good to go. Look at the revised agenda, not what we have in Granicus when we get to R4422, R4424.
It should be on.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to give you a heads up. I just got a text from one of our appointees who told me that he and a couple of other appointees are at City Hall right now. They did not get the memo that the meeting is virtual. So I know at least one of them, and it sounds like a few of them will be a little late joining us.
That's no problem at all. We'll push those appointments to the bottom, give them time to get here, and send our apologies. We'll push R4424 to the bottom as well. So let's jump straight down to the ID, and then we'll come back to the appointments and then legislation. We'll close this out.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd motion to approve the agenda as amended, as you suggested. Since we did some significant changes. Yes, thank you.
Second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Alderman Schandelmeyer. So we'll start with ID 14624, Office of Community Service updates. Members of the Office of Community Service team present?
Aisha, I'm here.
Fantastic. So if you could, this is obviously our first time having a chance to engage with you. If you could just give a just update kind of about yourself, your work, and then we'll jump into any questions that individuals may have for the office.
Okay. About myself, you want me to say like when I started? I think I started about February. I only been here for about 5 months. I'm the new community engagement administrator, also the acting manager for the Office of Community Services. And a lot of my work right now is consisting of just figuring out what the office is going to be about. Not really doing too many updates, but, going off of what works and creating a plan around what is working and what we feel the need is. I guess my background, if you wanted that, Alderman Gay. I've been doing this work for about 15 years, community engagement work. Prior to this, I was at another organization helping with public health, such as Medicaid, Medicare, getting people signed up for that. So I'm kind of used to this work and being out in the field and engaging the community. What was your last question?
I think that kind of just a quick wrap up about yourself, and then you've like as you mentioned, just been here a short time. Yeah. But our first time having a chance to talk to you. So let's jump into the first item, and this is how we'll do it. I have it broken down into subjects, staff, grants, rental assistant, nonprofit relations, and then general discussion. My colleagues on the council, feel free to jump in. Obviously, we always do open discussion. So Just starting with the staff.
Okay.
What's the current layout of staff in the Office of Community Services?
So we have Aaron Lee, who's our care coordinator. We also have Dante Hill. He just started August 28th, I believe. He's our new community coordinator. We have Evis Hernandez. She is our OCS associate in Ismania Boulevard. She is our, should I say Hispanic? I don't want to call her a Hispanic liaison, but she's been doing a lot of Hispanic liaison work, and our outreach navigator, I should say. And then we have a position open, which was Jada's old position, the OCS associate for rental assistance.
So the makeup currently, as it stands, 3 individuals. In the budget, did we allocate funds for an additional social worker?
I heard that we did. It wasn't, I guess, technically brought to our attention, but we did hear that there was another social worker. There's a conversation on whether or not if we need another social worker. Honestly, we don't feel like that is the need right now. What we do feel like a need is maybe a grant person, like a grant writer or grant coordinator who can definitely help us navigate all the grants and the process and the invoices that we get, answering the questions, the calls. That will help us a lot, take a lot of that off our plate and focus more on the community if we can get that instead.
That is very, very good to know. It's a, pro and con. Obviously, I think it's exciting if working with the city manager's office, you all are able to, position yourselves to get a grant coordinator or administrator, because I think that's something we stress for all the departments is critically important. As you mentioned, just so that things can process, we need revenue desperately, and particularly in a small office like this. The downside, though, is that we have one social worker then for 40,000 residents. And so my last question before I turn it over to any of my colleagues on the staffing front, projection on whether it be a grant administrator or social worker, when will something like that be advertised? And again, I'm not asking to rush things. I kind of am asking to rush things, but eager to see the office in its, fully staffed and fully functional. Not to say that you all aren't, because I tend to think the smaller offices carry the bulk of the load, and particularly as it relates to social work, and that's important. But I'd also like to, see the revenue and or see a social worker being able to assist. And so just outlines on that.
No, I definitely hear you and understand that piece. I'm not saying that Erin's workload is super right now. I just don't think there's a need, because her workload is not so much to where, she needs like a bunch of help. She doesn't really need that much right now. And she could speak a bit more about, her work and everything that's going on. I do think that we are on the same page when we discuss what the need of the office is. And right now the need of the office is a community coordinator, especially since a lot of her work is, and Erin, you can correct me, is immediate. So, we can help someone immediately, but sometimes if they do need that longer term assistance, we do have to refer them to Anne Arundel County for social services, so we kind of do that handoff. So it's not like her plate is super full with, a bunch of cases. And Erin, you can jump in if you want.
I'm sorry, can I just clarify one thing? When we talk about a grant coordinator for the Office of Community Services, a lot of what we're talking about there is someone who will work with recipients of city grants, whether it's the community grants, adopted community grants, child family success grants, to really help support those organizations and have them have some cohesion, capacity building with each other, as well as then just the mechanics, as Aisha was talking about, of processing invoices that we receive and that kind of stuff. But it's more on the giving of the grants and working with those recipients rather than on rather than on the receiving end. Aisha, is that fair?
I can say that's fair. I mean, we also do need more money too.
Yeah.
So I mean, we would also need them. Yeah. So to also answer your question, Alderman Gay, we will have to figure out what that job description looks like. So I can't give you a definite answer on exactly when we'll post it, because we definitely want to hash out all the details and make sure that we have a good job description before we get it out. I'm sorry, Aaron, did you want to say anything? Or
social work
we
care
can't hear you.
coordinator.
Okay, I hear you now. Sorry.
Okay, sorry, yeah. But Erin Lee, social work care coordinator, Office of Community Services. So yes, just to speak on the topic regarding having another social worker. So I would believe that at the time when that position was proposed, I was actually taking the temporary manager position, and in that role, I would say, and I can just speak for myself, in that it was difficult to have the manager position, the admin work, everything that goes along with that, and then also have my caseload that required, a lot of that one-on-one care, that specialized assistance, and the things that would normally come along with being a social worker. So that did become very difficult to handle at once. However, now that Aisha has stepped into that role, I'm able to focus 100% on my social worker role again, which has caused, a better flow, keeping up with the caseload, keeping up with the referrals. And typically for a lot of my referrals, if the case goes over 3 months, then we do work on referring them to the county or to the state or to another nonprofit. That usually happens in the process of working with clients on that one-to-one basis. So as it is right now, I do believe that having someone in that grant role or an admin role would be extremely helpful in building the office, just because that would give us enough time. Our community-based folks, like myself, like Dante, like Aisha, we can then focus more on building the office and not so much getting, bogged down in the minute things. So that would be it.
Thank you so much, Aaron. I appreciate that. And good seeing you as well. It's been a while. So
yes,
yeah. Any questions from my colleagues on the council? Alderman Shandelmeyer?
Thanks, Chairman. So Ms. Young, good to meet you. Sorry we're doing it via computer screen. Looking forward to meeting you in person sometime soon. I think what you're saying about needing an admin and a grant administrator makes a whole lot of sense. Someone to handle that work so you guys can focus on what you're good at, providing care to our community, I think is a pretty important thing. I guess the main question that I have is, is there anything that we can do and be useful in order to help get that position filled, or is it just it's in the hands of human resources now, and the process is the process?
Pretty much the process is the process. It's not in human resources hands yet. It's still in our hands. Again, okay. Also needed to have this conversation with you all to make sure, that's okay as far as changing the social service position to a grant coordinator position. And then again, just coming up with the job description for that role and then going from there.
Well, I guess this is a question for our law office for Mr. Braithwaite. If he could, does that require us, or Ms. Buckland, if she can also answer the question, does that require a full council approval for a changing of position? Does that require just the committee's approval? What are the steps that we need to take on our side?
It really depends on if it was passed by ordinance or resolution. If it was passed by ordinance, it'll take an ordinance to change the position. And I'm likely thinking it was passed by ordinance to create a position, since the budget is an ordinance. So if you was passed by ordinance, and only an ordinance can change an ordinance. If it was passed by a resolution or an ordinance can change the ordinance.
That makes sense to me. Could we get the law office to draft an ordinance then? Actually, I apologize. If I could ask my colleagues if they mind me asking the law office to put forward an ordinance to open a position for that with all of us as co-sponsors.
I'd be happy to be included on that, Brooks.
And that's something I would second as well. I would just say, you know, because I'm taking some notes, and so I'll turn it over then really quickly to the city manager, because it'll essentially be very similar to R4424, which we had before us tonight, which was something that was funded for X but changed to Y. And so, would you like us to move forward with the alderman's motion, or no, it's not a motion, it's just a recommendation, and he'll have to go through the Office of Law to draft that. Do you want us to move forward with that, or would you maybe, are you all still researching? Like, what's the game plan there?
So from my perspective, we had a lot of conversations with Aisha. Obviously, that team has had a lot of conversations and feels very comfortable with this request. Certainly, from the city manager's office, we're supportive of that desire on their part. If you guys are amenable to changing that, it obviously doesn't change anything within where the money is in the budget. There's no movement in that sense, but it does then give the blessing of the council, and that would allow then Aisha and the team to move forward, which from my perspective is all to the good.
Okay, well, if I could please make a request to the law office, and I believe my colleagues are also in agreement to join as co-sponsors to put forward that that ordinance to allow our office to get an administrator and a grant writer. I will ask Director Young if you could please let the law office know what the title and Ms. Jackson, our associate, what you would like the title to be. The money is the same, the purpose is the purpose, whatever you need to do, but please, if you could coordinate with them as soon as possible, because drafting legislation and getting introduced does take about a month. So the sooner we get that ready, the sooner we can get it introduced in the hopper.
And just quickly, with the Office of Law, one of the important things that would need to be done is we're getting with finance, because I don't recall what amendment that was. And so we would have to go back and find the amendment number. Is that the case?
That's something we can look up, and Aisha and I will coordinate and reach out to the folks who will need to have input on that.
Okay, fantastic.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question.
Of course, yeah, please.
So Director Young, and if you're going to touch on this later, just say I'm going to touch on this later. An amendment that we've put forward the past couple of years that I am very proud to have supported, and I'm really proud of my colleague Alderman Gay for putting forward and being the lead sponsor, is the Child Care Assistance Fund. Is that handled by your office?
Is that the same as the Child and Family Success Grants, or is it something different?
That's the same thing.
Okay, yeah. Yes.
Excellent. That is if you know, I'd be interested in knowing how many families have been able to take advantage of this program. If you don't know, it's okay if you email it over to me at a later time and to the rest of the committee members.
If you wouldn't mind, Alderman, and wait, just if there are no other questions as it relates to staff, then we can move forward to. No, you're fine. Then we can move forward to the next section, which is grants. Alderman Huntley, do you have any questions as it relates to staff?
No more questions, but I will say, Aisha, I really appreciate your work and your dedication to this important area.
Thank you.
My last question as it relates to staff, and I hate to steal your thunder, Brooks, but it does roll into grants. But it starts with staff. The rental assistance fund, what's the case with that? Because if Jada is not here operating that, what are applications being accepted? Are checks being cleared? Just a quick wrap up on that, please.
Yes, so we have a work plan. I myself and the team, we do the applications. We're only opening the applications Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, as you know, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So this definitely gives us time in between to process the applications, but everything is going smoothly. We didn't skip a beat since Jada left. We're continuing with the applications.
Okay, and what's the plans to fill that role? Because
I just sent everything to Jody, so I need everyone to sign off on the JD, and then we can get it posted once HR and everyone sign.
Okay, cool. And I'll come back to that later because I have it as rental assistance just to get statistics, but I wanted to figure out what's going on with the staff and I'm pleased to know nothing is really changed. That's fantastic. We'll go into, thank you, and that's good to know. We'll go into grants, starting with Alderman Schandelmeyer's question.
Oh, well, for your question, Alderman Schandelmeyer, I don't have that information, but I can definitely get it to you.
And
actually, if I could piggyback on that, though, from your knowledge of the program, would you call it successful? Would you call it in need of tweaking? Is what we're doing working?
I don't want to comment too much on something I don't know about. I don't know if Erin can comment a little bit more because she had more experience with the Child and Family Success Grants before I came on board. But as of right now, and Alderman Gay, I think you do know this, we did reopen the application for new applicants. We only had 3 so far, so I don't know if we want to reopen it, but that's how it's going right now. But if Erin, if you want to comment or speak on how the process went before I got here, that will be helpful.
Sure, definitely. So I can definitely say that from last time when it was open, I would say that the funds were used, well. We had several, and I apologize, I cannot remember the names of all the nonprofits that took advantage of the grant, but of those, they were all represented different parts of Annapolis and different neighborhoods, and they all were based upon their work with families and children in their respective areas. And that ranged everything from daycare to after school care to school mentoring, things like that. And, one of the nice things is that, yes, that money was used towards the care of families to help ease that burden on childcare. And each representative nonprofit also provided reports of how the money was spent. And they also offered tours of their areas that we, I know myself and the former director did do tours, visit the nonprofits, got to see them in action. So we were very thankful for that opportunity as well, just to, expand the network of resources here in the city.
That's fantastic. That was one of I'm glad you asked that because that was also one of my questions. Because typically, and particularly last year, we published it in August, and by like the 3rd week of August, I was trying to get funding out. Obviously, it was different this year because there was staff turnover. We had recess immediately after that. And so we couldn't get it out. My question, and I don't believe that there are any rules or regulations that would prohibit this. The 3 applicants that are in, because I do have constituents contacting me, we've obviously had to shrink the funding down just because the city, we can't abuse one-time funding. That's something that I've had to learn in my 5 years here. And so it's $50,000. At this point, my question is, do we, and I shouldn't say we because alder people are not allowed to, decide grants or whatever the case may be. I don't know. Joelle, I need some clarification on that. But looking at the applications, if you've, satisfy the request, would there still be funding left over for additional applicants?
Yes, there will.
So, so essentially I'm saying like if each group got like 10 grand, would you, and we just keep the application open for another 2 groups to apply and get $10,000. I think at this point, just because, we're moving into the school year, or the organizations that applied may have to tweak programming to fit the school calendar, etc. And I just kind of want to make sure those funds are out. Is that something that can be done, or would that, is that, just too much at this point?
I don't think it's too much at this point. I think it's something that can be done.
And it doesn't have to be done tomorrow, just right. Within the, if we could maybe close it out by September, at least with the 3 applicants that we have, I feel like that would be great, and then just keep it open as long as we need to.
Okay.
Alderman Huntley, any questions on grants? I know you're getting caught up on everything, but any questions or concerns about anything we're discussing?
No, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for asking.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions on grants? Is the Children and Family Success Grant the only one you're operating right now?
Community grants and adopt a community grants we're operating right now.
Okay, fantastic. Next, rental assistance. For the sake of time, if you like, you can email me the statistics. I really, like to know like kind of where we are with current funding, how many applicants have applied, how many applicants have received funding year to date. I just think that those statistics are helpful. I already know that the program is successful, but it's helpful just to, when you're in community or when I'm talking to my colleagues, to be able to say, hey, 80 families got rental assistance this year, And so if you all could email that, don't just email it to me. I'm sorry, email it to the entire committee. That'd be fantastic.
Well, I wrote it down. We did have 88 applicants since July 15th because we opened it July 15th, and 56 of them were approved so far.
I'm going to play the number 88 because I didn't know that. She didn't tell me that at all. So, okay. 88 applied, 56 approved.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Ms.
Young,
thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Ms. Young, I'm very happy with our rental assistance program, but something to call to your attention. Last year, it ran out of funding in 5 months as an indicator of our city's housing crisis. Our housing crisis has not improved. So I assume we are going to probably run out of money again. If I am wrong, please let us know, because that signs that something's going right. And if I am right, I think you should also let us know, because that is another alarm bell for us that we need action on that.
No, you're right. The money is going really quickly. Honestly.
Already?
Yeah, already. I mean, it's not gone. No, I'm saying it's going fast, but it's not gone yet. It's not gone yet, but it's going fast.
Okay.
But again, we do have, the issues of running into denials because, a unit isn't licensed, or maybe they're out of city limits, or it's something else. They're missing paperwork, or we can't get back, with them. So there are those barriers that we do run into. But the money is going pretty quickly. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think we may have had less this year than from last year, from what Jada may have told me before she left, but I'm not sure. But it's going pretty fast, so we're going to need more eventually.
Yeah, but I do want to jump in just briefly. As you well know, that's a very large struggle for a lot of people. The city on its own is not likely to fill that hole. But one of the things that I appreciate that Aisha and the team have been really working on has been, when that money when that part essentially of the year is over, that's not the end of what the city can do to support people. And Aisha, if you want to talk a little bit about some of the exploring you guys have been doing around other ways to support people.
Yeah, so definitely. So we're hoping that, once the funding runs out, we can support them with financial literacy. That is one of the questions that is asked on the application is, would you be interested in financial literacy courses? And a lot of them do check yes. So I think, once the remaining funds run out, we can have that opportunity to offer any financial literacy, any rental counseling, on eviction, or how to handle, situations that we've run into. So we're hoping that we can get started on that and create a plan around that.
Yeah, so there are a couple of jurisdictions in the state, the city of Gaithersburg in particular, that has a financial empowerment center that our team has talked with, and there are some ideas and stuff from there that they've looked at that I think would be helpful to help fill in, where we're not necessarily able to help, financially, or as a supplement to when we are able to, here are some other things that can help people all throughout the year.
Yeah, definitely.
And maybe that's a prerequisite for receiving assistance, is that you have to go then, all right, we'll give you the $3,000, and come to a financial literacy course that is, hosted by somebody. We've got a lot of, small banks, etc. in the city. And so somebody could be able to assist there. My plan, though, is because, to the alderman's point from Ward 5, it is a crisis and it's not going to stop, and that's the upsetting thing. It's like, I can't believe Avalon, and I'm not even going to get into that, but that was touted as affordable housing, and the studios are $2,000. And so it is a crisis. The city has to play a role in it. And, I think one of the things that, many of us on the council has agreed on is the arts and public places funding is a bit excessive. Arts and public places is, gets 3% of the hotel and entertainment tax, and so does the rental assistance fund. That's how it's funded. And so, I love arts and public places, but, I like people in their homes more. And so that's a discussion that we can have with the state General Assembly once, we need to have that actually now because, we want them to pre-file stuff like that. And so that's something that myself and the committee can get into quickly because, we want to close out here with OCS. The last two things, Hispanic relations, the Hispanic coordinator, ever-growing population in the city of Annapolis that I know that I'm out of touch with. I don't want to speak for any of my colleagues. How has that process been so far in the Office of Community Services, and with support, could we lend to you? If you could educate us, just on community relations, that'd be extremely helpful.
Well, EVs and Ismania, they do a great job, with their collaboration with partnerships and being out in the community whenever there's a crisis or whenever something is needed and a family needs assistance in their Hispanic family. I immediately reach out to both of them because I know that they're going to assist them. For example, like with Spa Road, they were able to come out to the house, talk to all of the families and get everyone signed up and figure out, where they can go and how we can continue to assist them, and did follow up. Also being in contact with social services and making sure that, anything else that they needed for future, they were able to assist with. So honestly, I can't say anything else. They've just been great. And again, we haven't missed a beat. So I don't know if they want to speak on anything personally on their end. EV Source Mania, they both are here. As far as support, I'm taking a Spanish class. That's like the only thing I can think of. It's like being able to help on my end. And then moving forward, just coming up with additional plans or, strategic plan around supporting, Hispanic communities even further. I'm sorry, Vicky.
Yeah, the thing I'll add is that the formal Hispanic liaison position got recreated in this budget. And so that's one of the positions that's still slated to be created and hired. So Ismania and Evie, so I'll have you address the particular question of what's happening on the ground. But in terms of that overall support, that position still needs to be created, and there's a lot of that work that they do now that really lives under that they have carried a lot of water for a long time. Evie, Ismania, I don't know if you want to jump in and add.
Ismenia, ¿quieres decir algo?
Sí, tú me vas a ayudar con la interpretación. Definitivamente el programa de ayuda de renta es muy importante y la comunidad ha sabido aprovecharla, se ha beneficiado de ella.
She say the rental assistance program is being really important for the Hispanic community, and then the community is being taken.
You muted yourself.
Ok, una vez que cuando el
Sorry.
programa, una vez que nos hemos quedado sin presupuesto en el programa, hemos recurrido nosotros, yo como navegador hispano y tú también como conexión de la ciudad, de la Oficina de Servicios Comunitarios, vinculamos a los solicitantes con las otras organizaciones y con otras, incluyendo la iglesia también, de tal forma que sea protegida la comunidad, que sea protegido ese solicitante, incluso haciendo contacto llevándolo y guiándolo en función de acompañamiento con estos solicitantes hasta la corte.
So once we don't have like more money for the funds for the rental assistance, what we do is like, that when we work a lot of nonprofit and organizations in the city, they always rely on us from OCS, and we always part of the events, and we always trying to support them the best that we can. So that's the reason they always support us when we don't have the resources. So we always working with the church when we don't have the fund for rental assistance for a person. They always helping us, or we even go to the court to see what we can do for them. But
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much. Again, I just want to highlight that work, just because a lot of times we don't know what's going on, across our wards with so many issues. And so greatly appreciate that. If there are no questions from my colleagues, we'll close out. I see Alderman Schandelmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you just give us a quick breakdown of the nationality of most of our Hispanic population? I think it's still El Salvador is the number one component. Is that still accurate? What are some of the others, if you know, and if you don't, you can just email to us later.
We'll say Salvador and Mexico. Guatemala, Ismania, we are in charge of the consulates of Mexico, Salvador, Guatemala. We have 100 persons in 2 days. She's trying to help them out the best that we can, and they can feel like the city cares about them. Most of these people, they don't have any documentation. They don't even have a birth certificate. So that's what we're trying to do for these people right here. But I would say Mexicans and people from El Salvador.
Well, Mexico is now above El Salvador as far as total number of.
Yeah.
Cool.
If so, can you follow up with us with the Hispanic outreach physician? If necessary, we'll do the same thing that we're doing with the grant coordinator, or I don't know what the title would be, grant something, but let's get that up and running if possible. And then in our October meeting, it'd be great to have some follow up with kind of the work that you all are doing there. In particular, you just said 800 people signed up for assistance in 2 days. That's, there obviously is need. And so, that'll be fantastic. So, just in follow up here, Brooks, you're going to get the ordinance together in coordination with the city manager and OCS. The rental assistance application will be out sometime soon, but there are no hiccups. And I will follow up with you with the three in regards to the three applicants that apply for the Children and Family Success Grant. Fantastic. Greatly appreciate the work that you are all doing. No other questions. You all are free to go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's jump next to the APs, because I have a feeling the bulk of these will be carried as one. If you are here for an appointment or reappointment, can you please jump on the screen?
We only ask the appointments to come because the reappointments are already on the board. So
okay. All right. So this is what we'll do then. If you are Mrs. Ellen Moyer, Michael Allen, Christine Trapnell, Lisa Wilson, or Fish Stark, you can jump on the screen. I'm going to make a motion right now that we carry AP 2324 through AP 2924 as one.
Mr. Chair, I second that motion, but can I just ask if any of our potential appointments you just named would like to say a word or two? Is that all right with you?
Yeah, so I'll let the appointments speak. We're going to carry the reappointments really quickly.
Sorry, my apologies.
No, you're good. You're good.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. We do have Ms. Ox, AP 2324 reappointment to the Education Commission here. She has made an appearance. I don't know if we want her to say any words. I think she's done a fine job on the Education Commission. I appreciate her showing up. But if she's all set and you're all set, I'm willing to make the vote on this.
If you'd like to share some words, that's fine. I do also appreciate your work on the commission.
Maria, thank you for this opportunity to continue to support our fellow families and educators.
Thank you for your service on this commission, Ms. Sachs. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, and look forward to you continuing to serve. And I think the September meeting I just got the invite to, so look forward to seeing you there. There was a motion. It was seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Fantastic. Thank you. I think AP 5024, Mr. Fishtalk to the Education Commission. I think you may be the only one present that's getting an appointment. So we'll start with you. If you'd like to share any information, look, we definitely appreciate you applying.
Yeah, no, I'll keep this super brief. It's good to see all of you, and I know you guys have a lot to cover in the meeting, so I'll keep it short. I've worked in education for about the past decade. I started off working as an early childhood teacher and then was program staff in a series of mentorship and college access programs that worked with low-income youth, first in New Haven, Connecticut, then in the coal fields in West Virginia. Eventually, I moved into the program development space with a focus on social emotional learning and youth mental health. So I worked for a long time for a nonprofit that ran service learning programs around the world. And recently, I spent a number of years working at a tech startup that built mental health apps for kids, running the program and curriculum department. Since moving back home to Anne Arundel County, I've served on the board of the advisory board of New Village Academy, exciting new charter school offering at the mall, helping develop curriculum there. I've worked closely with several members of our Board of Education. I'm excited to do what I can to make sure that people's voices are heard about both current challenges and successes in our schools and figure out how we can make sure that our county schools are best serving the kids in the city of Annapolis.
Thank you so much, and great to know about your background. I love educators. I credit my middle school teachers and mentors with kind of really getting me on the right track in life, and so education is critical.
Good.
One question, not that it's going to stop me from voting for you, because I think that you are obviously a great candidate, and I know you on a somewhat personal level through the party stuff. You mentioned your work with the charter school. Mm-hmm. What is your position? And you don't have to elaborate extensively, but on charter v. public,
I think,
and just the funding issues there.
Yeah, I think the right role for charters is to have a limited number of them as lab schools to test out new concepts. Romy Pittman School is super innovative. It's going to test out a new model that hopefully I think will transform the way we think about high school learning and could be scaled back to public schools. It's important to me that they're gonna work under the AACPS TAC contract. So adhere to the union agreements when working with teachers. I think that's normally the biggest problem with charter schools is they use non-unionized labor. So I'm not generally a fan of charter schools, but this specific one I think is a great example of what they can do when they've got a narrow role.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. And just curious, just because I'm still, learning about the relationships that charter schools have with low income communities, et cetera. And so I greatly appreciate that. Any other questions on the committee?
Motion to give a favorable recommendation to Mr. Stark.
Second, proudly.
There is a motion on the floor to approve AP 5024, and there's a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Fantastic, and looking forward to your service on the commission as well.
Thanks, folks. Appreciate it.
Just for your reference, the timeline on this, Mr. Stark, is going to be go in front of the larger council at our next meeting, and barring some weirdness, these recommendations are always followed. So, we're looking forward to working with you there.
I'll try and keep my nose clean until then. Thanks so much.
There you go. And then we'll just make a motion to carry AP 3024 through AP 3324. They aren't. I don't believe anybody else is here to speak. So
You want to postpone them, or are you recommending them favorably?
To recommend them favorably. Yeah.
I will second for the point of discussion.
Okay, let's have discussion.
Appointments, I usually like it when they show up, unless we're having like massive gaps in these commissions. I do think it's important they at least try to appear in front of us. Some of these names I know, but I do find it useful. If my colleagues are comfortable though going forward, and if us voting no doesn't blow up the appointment process entirely, I think it's okay if we postpone. Ms. Jackson, could you check that point of order? If we withdraw this motion, does that blow up the appointments of these folks individually entirely, or
no? It just postpones them to you all's next meeting in October, and then they will go before the council soon after that, and then they can participate. And it seems as though these appointments are for the same commission, which
they
is
are
aging. Yes.
Yeah.
You all want to get to know that commission in its entirety, because it seems like these are the people on there. I don't know if there are any more people on that commission, then I would postpone it.
All right, so let's kill this. Well, actually, it was seconded. So motion to withdraw, I believe.
Yep. That first, I'll make that motion.
Second. All in favor, aye.
Aye. And Mr. Chair, if I could just make a point of personal privilege, I'd suggest that maybe for our members of our Commission on Aging, they might be more interested in appearing in a in-person meeting. So maybe that's something we want to consider for our next meeting.
Okay. So let's postpone it, and then we'll obviously reconsider. Our whether we're in person or out of person, and we can discuss that offline. That's totally fine. So I'll make a motion to postpone AP 3024 through AP 3324. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. If you could also, at the next meeting, Kaylin, can you take note? Every single person that we just reappointed for the Housing Authority, can you invite them also to our next meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Let's move on to the next item of the agenda, which is legislation R4424. I think we have staff and a pivotal stakeholder present to discuss this. As you all know, we put together this was a funding request initially in FY24. It was tweaked through the administration and planning and zoning, and we're here where I think everybody is happy and comfortable. But there are questions and possible amendments. So what I'll do is first turn it over to Mr. Jakubiak, and I'll allow him to kind of discuss, just general outline, because I know policy also was put into place with Teresa, and then, just how this will play out in your opinion, and then I'll allow Melissa to jump in as well.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. This resolution would authorize the grant of $500,000 to our efforts working with HACA to repair, maintain, and secure our units, housing units, and secure licenses for those units. And the agreement that is associated with the resolution contains a plan of action that our staff worked jointly with HACA to develop, and it reflects a proactive approach to addressing those units that have failed the inspection process previously. It also contains a plan to focus on, or the plan also contains an emphasis on maintaining licensure of those units that already have licenses, so that they pass the next annual inspection. So it's a funding commitment that is should have a direct bearing on the lives of residents in these housing units in the 4 principal public housing properties at HACA. And there's a lot that can be said about the approach, and there's data to support our efforts so far, and I'm happy to get into all those details. And of course, on a lot of these more specific questions, I would defer to Melissa Maddox Evans, who's here representing HACA, who I've had the opportunity to work closely with. So I'm here to answer any questions you might have and provide any guidance that you might need as you consider this resolution.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Sure. Let's jump right in with questions. Well, Melissa, share your side also, and then we'll jump right into questions.
Well, thank you, Alderman Gay and other alder persons. And we are at HACA very grateful that the city is considering reallocating these funds for the purposes of assisting us in performing repairs to both vacant and occupied units. We serve 550 households in the city of Annapolis. And these households, we believe, deserve safe, decent, along with affordable housing opportunities. As you all are aware, we have very extensive redevelopment plans for all of our public housing sites. We have already redeveloped half of our housing portfolio to date. However, redevelopment takes several years. And so even going at a very fast, reasonably fast pace. For your understanding, I've been at this agency about 5 years now. We've had 4 major closings during those 5 years, which is a significantly fast pace redevelopment wise. We have 3 closings to go. And so in the meantime, we would like for the units that the residents are living in to be adequate and habitable and decent and enjoyable for them until we can reach that point where we can do major redevelopment. And that is the purpose of this funding and other funding sources that we are pursuing to assist us with, in essence, right now is about a $2 million gap in needs with regards to performing capital repair issues. So any assistance that the city of Annapolis can provide, and we understand it is considering reallocating $500,000 toward this effort, we greatly appreciate and be happy to answer any questions in relation to that. And we are very grateful for Director Jakubiak and his staff for assisting us in helping create a plan in which we can execute once these funds are received.
Thank you so much, Melissa. My first question, and then I'll come to you, Alderman Chandler. I am confused, and I need clarity on on the staff note under impacts of legislation. It says the department will administer the funds. Are we turning over the funds to HACA so that they can hire contractors, or is the department holding all funds and HACA applies as necessary when they have contractors? Or help me understand that line.
Sure. So this grant creates an allocation of up to $500,000. I would fully expect that all $500,000 would be used and devoted to this effort. But it doesn't all happen at once. We would imagine that there would be initial allocation of funds, and then a performance evaluation. It's ongoing. We've developed the infrastructure to support that already. And then upon finding that performance is per plan, we're achieving our results and our goals, the second tranche would flow, and the third. And we haven't determined how that the amounts of those, and we'll work jointly with HACA to figure out what's best in that regard. But so when that staff report says it would be administered, the program would be administered by the department, it's referring to the Department of Planning and Zoning and our administration of that grant, not administrating in any detailed way the actual funds, and we're not involved in that level of detail.
So, and we're having conversation here. This is but I'm just curious. Wouldn't the residents who have been living in, some units that are licensed, some that are not licensed, wouldn't they benefit more if we just turn the funds over to HACA and let them run a housing program?
Well, that's it. We are allocating the funds to HACA. There's no question about it. But there is an objective to ensure that due diligence and oversight is provided to city resources. The city has not been in the business of doing property maintenance, and we certainly don't want to start that. But this is a commitment of substantial sums, and the city wants to ensure that the ongoing work that it started with HACA continues. So it's more about an oversight function and a continued collaboration that we've begun already.
So, do you have a written plan of action?
Yes, it's attached to the grant agreement. It's attachment A in the grant agreement.
I don't know if we have that. Can that be sent to the council?
Yeah, I would imagine they can, unless the law office is holding that from being released. But certainly, Melissa's office has a copy, and the city law office has a copy, because the attorneys in both agencies are working through language and context, and as they draft that. But it has been drafted, and it's the action plan is the business part of the agreement, and that's certainly an important document for you to see.
Yeah, I would totally agree, because I have full faith and trust in Melissa that if we gave her $500,000 and said, fix the issues that you're aware of, that constituents complain about, that they could do so in a timely manner. My concern with the city playing bank is that it slows down the process. And I understand that, you know, we want to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money, but I trust that a organization that is run on behalf of the federal government could handle $500,000 in repairs, and particularly with Melissa's experience in her previous role. And so I'm just worried about the timeline. I do have an amendment that I'm prepared to introduce on the floor tonight. Well, I have two amendments that I'm prepared to introduce on the floor tonight, and one of which will require that, you know, the funding be dispersed to HACA by November the 1st. I think these are serious issues. The residents have lived with them long enough. The funding is there. I'd like to, you know, get this on the roll. And partly I'm upset because, you know, obviously my initial plan was that, you know, the HACA get 250,000 of this. And so, you know, we're going the whole 5. And so let's just do it and get it over with. Is kind of my philosophy. I'm not saying that to you, Director Jakubiak. I'm speaking in general, as in like us getting, you know, the funding to them. That's just kind of my thought. Alderman Schandelmeyer, I see your hand, and then Alderman Huntley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Director Jakubiak, those evaluations and performance standards, those are part of the draft. You said those were being drafted. Those aren't a part of our attachments, but are those, you did say those were available to us and could be sent to us soon?
Yes, there's an action plan that has gone through staff review and is attached to the agreement that will be entered into between HACA and the city. And yes, the committee members, I thought that you would have had copies of this plan already, so and had been prepared to discuss it. So we have that, and I'll make sure that you get a copy.
Thank you, sir. How many phases are there to the payout of the 500,000 when this passes?
It's not determined yet. We're not going to be in the. It's not our intent at this stage to kind of stipulate those terms, but in continuing to work with HACA and the executive director and staff, property management folks, we would decide what's ultimately in the best interest of achieving the goals of the grant agreement. So it might be a few, it might be more than a few, but you know, $500,000 doesn't get me sliced many ways when it comes to the magnitude of the issues that we see, and we are closely involved now because, as you might recall, the city hired or promoted a supervisor, inspector supervisor, to do the entire inspections and be the point person between the city and HACA. So we've developed a new approach to working with HACA in doing the inspections. So we're very close on the ground now and understand in an intimate way the issues that HACA is facing and the specifics with respect to every unit and its improvements that are necessary. So whether it's, you know, 2 phases or 3 or 4, we'll determine what's best in consultation with Melissa Maddox Evans and her staff.
This can either be for you, Director Kubiak, or you, Director Maddox Evans. Do we have a standard on what improvements actually means? Is that just things like mold remediation? Is that things like plumbing upgrades? Is that things like climate control being installed? Is that if there's something wrong and we're trying to get it up to snuff, it counts?
Yeah. Well, that could be both of us. So I can just answer first in a general way. It's all of that. It's all the things that lead to licensed housing units, and that maintains the licensure of units. But that's all I'll say, and turn it over to Melissa.
Yes, so the focus will be to remediate the issues that are generating code violations, which will center on health and safety issues, any other systemic issues that reoccur that lead to code violations. So our goal is to be able to ensure the units are licensed, and in that address whatever that means according to the list of violations that we receive from city code inspectors. And so, and within that, we have a list of priorities. For example, one of the top priorities is mold remediation, as you can imagine. And so, and from there, we take each issue and we have prioritized them along with an estimated time span for completion, as you will see when you receive attachment A in our plan to repair once we receive these funds.
Now, thank you. So, Director Maddox Evans, you said there's about a $2 million shortfall. $500,000 is a significant amount of money, but that is less than $2 million. Does HACA have a plan for other sources to chip away at that remaining 1.5?
Yes, we have applied to HUD under their capital fund assistance program. The minimum allocation is $250,000. We applied for 1.6 million. Unfortunately, it's a competitive grant nationwide in which they only are going to fund 5 housing authorities in the nation. So
if you could please send us
the likelihood of us getting awarded that is slim compared to the need across the nation. However, we applied. We have also requested to the county for funds to assist. They have deployed a consultant to review both our housing units and our financials to assess what they will fund and if they will assist us with funds. Their consultant determined that we have an estimated $2.5 million in capital fund needs after he conducted a tour of our properties. And so we are also discussing these issues with state officials. Senator Elfreth has graciously decided to host a meeting with all government officials, city, county, state officials. And we initially met at the end of April when I initially conveyed to all of them what the needs are. And she's reconvening all leaders on October 10th to find out what is the status as far as the different governmental entities assisting HACA. And so all levels of government have been notified about what the current needs are for the housing authority and its residents.
Thank you. And then one last question. So one of the major funding causes of the funding issue has been long-term non-rent payments from residents. And when these units are renovated, if there is a resident who has not been paying rent for a long time, you have said some of folks have not been paying since the pandemic and the rent moratoriums were put in.
Correct.
Will we be able to evict? This isn't me getting joy out of that, but there is still a wait list of a lot of people who are willing to pay rent and fund it, and they need housing too. Will we have that ability to, or is that a totally separate issue, not related to this?
Well, it is indirectly related. It will be a little bit, the termination process tends to be a bit more fluid and more expeditious if they are generated from units that are able to obtain city licenses more quickly. In order to file an ejectment in the state of Maryland, you must attach a rental license, an active rental license on a unit. You only are allowed to collect for months in which a unit is licensed in the state of Maryland. And so it tends to be a bit the enforcement mechanism that a landlord has to collect rent is much more expeditious with our private properties or properties that have been redeveloped, because they don't have the same systemic issues that our public housing units do, because they've been renovated for the most part. So they don't experience the same level of delinquency that we do. There is still some delinquency and debts that they have to write off, but it's not to the level that we experience, which is now we hover around maybe 30-35% in rent collection, which the ideal rent collection is around 95 to 98%. So you can imagine the kind of impact it has on our operations.
30 to 35%. So we're only getting rent from about 35% of residents in our properties.
In the public housing properties. Our partners hover around 94%, 95, 97% at our partner properties, to give you an example of the difference.
Goodness.
Question, so we can start to.
Yes, I yield my time.
How much? No, you're fine. A question in line with what you have recently, with your previous question. I'm curious, how much money has the state delegation, D30, provided to the Housing Authority in the city of Annapolis?
Mm-hmm. So 1.5 million has been allocated for the redevelopment of Robinwood, the redevelopment of the community center, which we will very glad and grateful for, and will be using when we commence the redevelopment project.
Which is X amount of years down the line.
Well, hopefully within the next 12 to 18 months, we will be closing on the Robinwood property. We already have a developer and have already begun developing site plans, which we are actually in communication with Director Jakubiak and his staff with regards to the planning stages for that development. And so that's in motion, but yes, it will take several years to get to the point where we're actually doing construction on site. I would say maybe
have they provided funding for the immediate needs?
Not as of yet, no, sir.
Thank you. Alderman Huntley.
Thank you. I was going to ask two questions, but I think I'll try and turn one into a comment, just to say I would encourage you guys, if this, depending on how this is structured, to see ways that maybe these funds to ACT can be leveraged as matching funds for maybe some other grant. But I'm guessing you've already thought of that. My actual question is, this seems like a really worthy purpose for these funds. I'm just a little bit curious about the source of the funds. And I read, of course, through the materials that it is for renovation for private landlords. But do you guys have any more information you can provide us on that program, and particularly maybe on the uptake of it in the past?
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to take that?
Well, I mean, yeah, you can, and then I'll fill in where, yeah.
I mean, I can give a quick outline, Alderman. In fiscal year 24, the program was set up to provide direct funding assistance to private landlords to repair and rehab existing rental apartments. But that program went through a process of developing a procedures and approach and how funds would be used and agreements. But when confronted with the crisis situation in April of this year at HACA, our staff proposed that this funding be made available instead to the public housing because the funds were not readily available elsewhere to address an imminent serious need. And that was back in the spring when we made that first initial suggestion to the city administration.
Anything to add, Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry?
Anything to add?
No, I think that's a really good summary of what's taking place. And
oh, go
ahead, please.
No, I just had a follow-up question. So was the original source of this funding, was it part of federal COVID relief? It was part of the city's operating budget? Where did that initially
This was one-time funding. So we have the general fund. There is a portion of it which is one-time funding, which I think is it's like excess funding that they put aside for. It's supposed to be for one-time use, hence the name one-time funding. But the council has used it in the last 3 or 4 years really to meet the social needs of our communities, rightfully so. And particularly during COVID, obviously we also had ARPA money then too, so it made things a lot easier. But yeah, so are there any other questions? I'm going to throw out my amendment and we'll see what we get from that. I also have egg on my face because I have told constituents and colleagues that, we're going to get this out fast. It'll be, good for the community. This is, a win for public housing. And now I have to eat my own words and postpone, my own damn funding. And so I'm pissed about that. I really am. In part because there is, and this is again, not directed towards any staff, but there is this, we're still operating in silos, and particularly when it comes to housing. And the fact that, the administration, the city management, and a department and an outside entity being HACA have got together and created some plan of action that we have not seen, but we are expected to vote on a reallocation of the funding is disappointing to me. It's also hurtful because we were not included in the conversation. And in particularly as someone who represents damn near 50% of the public housing in the city of Annapolis, I would have, so much as appreciated an email as it related to, this timeline that you all are creating. So my amendment is, it'll be on page 2, line 17, and it'll read, therefore be it further resolved, the city will distribute all funds no later than November 1, 2024. And, can I get a second on that, and then we'll go into discussion?
Second for the point of discussion.
Thank you. And feel free to vote it down if you disagree. But obviously that the funds are there. You all have created a plan of action that I believe can be expedited. And just like any other grant recipient, if we give, HACA the funds and something happens, they have to pay it back. I mean, that's just, we would do that with a community grant, and so I don't get why we would not hold this institution, because that's exactly what it is. It's an institution to the same standards. They have an executive director that is fully capable, and they have a board that I believe that Melissa can, create messaging to help them, throughout this entire process so that everybody can be on the same page. If you would like to say, okay, fine, we'll give you the funds on November 1, and our plan of action starts November 1, and we check in with you in January. And if you aren't meeting the needs of the city, then we take back the remainder of the funds and you pay us the remainder of the funds back, then that's fine. But I don't want to get into piecemealing funds for the most vulnerable citizens in our community. And I get the need for transparency. I totally get it. That's why initially I was like, all right, fine, let's just do 250, and we'll also let the private sector get in on the rest. But we're here, and so I just think that we should give it to them.
2 questions on that, if I may, Mr. Chairman. In your amendment, are you wanting the lump sum of the $500,000 distributed by November 11th? Am I remembering the date correctly?
Yeah, by November 1, 2024. That essentially means this resolution would come back to our committee at the end of this month. It would go to Rules and City Government at the beginning of October, because that's when they meet. It'd go to the full council at the end of October. We pass it and we give them their money in November.
So I have some discomfort with that. I like the plan of allocating funds in a couple different installments. I feel like that adds a little bit of extra oversight and seeing what is working, and giving us a little bit more accountability for a very large investment that we are putting into the property. Director Jakubiak, do you share my thoughts on this issue, or are you willing to take this on? Because if you do not share this concern, I am willing to trust you and willing to touch Director Maddox Evans. So this is essentially to stand on this.
Well, I had a role in drafting that plan, so I share your concern, Alderman Schneidermeyer. It's not a concern that's reflective of the management of HACA at all, or how the money might be used, but it's a reflective of the partnership that we've been developing in coordination with HACA. So it seems to me it was a natural outreach or evolution of that coordination and working relationship that we've had developed. We meet weekly, and this allows all of us to target and stay focused on the results of the inspections. And after all, it's our staff, the city staff, that are doing these inspections and seeing firsthand where funds can be delivered in a very productive way, and to offer guidance with HACA. So it was more with the goal of sustaining and building on our working relationship and targeting our resources, which are not just monetary resources, but staff resources, in alignment with HACA and its staff and contractors.
Now to devil advocate my own point, though, because an issue I just thought of, and I do think this is worth addressing. Construction costs and timelines being what they are at this moment, could that delay end up creating more expensive repairs in the future? Are you concerned about that, Director Kubiak, and then Director Maddox Evans, if you also chime in on that?
No, we're talking about 3 to 6 months using these funds. I mean, this is immediate concern. So it's more of a direct, assertive effort to target units that require repairs, and working with HACA and then to report back to the City Council and its committees on progress made throughout the process. And by that, license is achieved and vacancies eliminated.
Director Maddox Evans?
Yes. I am not opposed to the idea of disbursements. However, I would request that whatever the initial disbursement is, it would be of an amount that could enable us to have an impact. So, for example, if the disbursements could be made in 2 tranches or no more than 3, for example, to turn the average turn of a unit could be anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000, for example, and that's notwithstanding any major issues for one of our units. So for us to have any kind of significant impact, especially since we can't operate on a reimbursement basis for this grant, we usually are funded, for example, with CDBG funds that the city awards and allocates based on a reimbursement basis. Say the amount is $100,000. We perform the work, we provide the receipts, and we get reimbursed. Because of our deficit issues, even that is challenging. So to have a significant impact within a short time frame requires a allocation that will enable us to have an impact. And so in your thinking of disbursements, which I understand and agree with, I would just request that you all consider that. We have general contractors and specialized contractors already procured according to our HUD approved procurement standards and literally on standby waiting for us to be able to issue them work. So we have the capacity to do so with our staff and with our already retained contractors that we have. We just need the funds to deploy them. And that's so you can understand how we envision this to be executed. And that's where, so we're in a bit of a holding pattern, if you will, on some of these repairs due to the lack of funding. So, and that's what we're encouraging our funders to consider. If we were provided HUD funding, for instance, HUD provides the disbursement, and then they require reports on the disbursement. They may disperse in 1 tranche, in 2, it just depends on the type of grant. So the grant that we're seeking with HUD now for capital funds disperse, I believe, in 2 tranches, and Asim Nagang, he can probably clarify that. He's our development director and assisted in submitting that grant application.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. Asim Nigam, Director of Development at HECA. So we have applied to HUD for $1.8 million in capital funds. And as Ms. Maddox Evans said, if we do get lucky, if we're among those 5 chosen ones across the country, then we may get some funds. But as HUD does with all of their funding, it's on a reimbursement basis. So we have to spend our money first, show them the invoices, upload the HUD's IDIS, that's the HUD system, and then we can draw down the money. Here to make the most impact for our public housing residents, as we have been talking about the need of these funds, since HECA is short on their cash flows because of only 35 or 40% of the residents are paying any rent on a monthly basis, we need the money now up front. So whether it's 2 tranches or whatever the case may be, and then we can do the work. Our contractors are on the standby. We can, as soon as we give them notice to proceed, they will start working on these units, and we can submit the reports to Dr. Jakubia's office. And, Chris Jakubia and his staff, they work very closely with us. We have weekly meetings with them and with their inspectors, so we resolve any issues. So that's where we are on these funds. So we will really appreciate if the city can award these funds in not too many tranches. If the disbursement is made in 2 tranches, I'm just making this up, but as we mentioned earlier, the first tranche has to be substantial to make some impact on the public housing units. Thank you.
And that goes back to the motion that's on the floor. There's a motion on the floor, and there's an amendment on the floor that's been motioned. Second, it's $500,000, and to me, it just seems objectively wrong to piecemeal, and that's what it'll essentially be, because the amount is so small. It's not like we're giving them $500,000 in 4 fiscal rounds. Or 4 rounds. It's $500,000. You know, Melissa's got the team or the contractors ready to go, and I think what sends a better message to our constituents that, 1, we're working with HACA, 2, we have trust in HACA, than to just get this over with. I mean, I really don't, I don't get it. And if there is an elephant in the room, I'd rather it just be stated than, us, walking around on it. I don't have a problem with the executive leadership at HACA. I think they're fully capable of handling this tiny grant of $500,000. And I think that's what it boils down to. Can we give them that money? And can they, HACA, communicate effectively with our planning and zoning staff and our city manager? I think they can do it. And if they don't, they pay us back. And this was from one-time funding. This isn't something that's going to happen every single year. This is a lifeboat. Let's vote on the amendment. Oh, I see Vicky.
I just wanted to, obviously I've been listening in the background. I think the thing that I just want to underscore is that the conversation up to this point, and the conversation between planning and zoning and HACA and that agreement is something that is mutual. The city has no interest whatsoever in delaying, and so I haven't heard anything about, that agreement that they've worked out somehow being wrung from these 2 parties. That's something that
when you say mutual between who? Because the city council wasn't involved. Which is the legislative branch of the government.
Born from the partnership between planning and zoning and HACA, and so I just want to voice my support for the partnership that these parties have clearly spent a lot of time building, and so I just want to make sure that that's not in anyone's interest, right? Is to somehow get in the way of that partnership. The city has worked very hard. HACA has worked very hard, right, doing this together, and the interest is in continuing that. So that the agreement as it exists is not intended to somehow be a stumbling block to that partnership. It is rather an expression of that partnership.
And again, we don't know that because we don't have it. And so that's problem number 1. And let's vote on this amendment. This is not getting out of this committee, without what I feel would be a fair trade for HACA. From what I've heard from the executive director tonight, I'm not hearing her gleefully saying, oh, this was the best plan of action we've ever could create. I'm hearing her say, there's a plan of action. We don't know how much funding we're actually going to get from the city. Make it substantial so that these projects can work. And so that's not satisfactory to me. I see Alderman Huntley's hand.
Mr. Chairman, just before we vote on this, I'd ask that you restate exactly the text of the amendment.
Therefore,
be further to a vote.
Therefore, be further resolved, the city will distribute all funds no later than November 1, 2024. It'd be on page 2, line 17, after the second. Now, therefore, be it resolved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let's take a vote on this. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Oppose?
Nay.
Kaylin, can you get for me send me in a separate email the amount of time a committee is able to hold a piece of legislation, please? And I would greatly appreciate that.
90 days.
Well, we'll postpone this through the holiday. As I'm going to do that. If we're not giving it out, then we're not doing it until the holiday. So that's.
Chairman, I'd like to make the motion to give a favorable recommendation to our.
No.
I'd like to second the Alderman's motion.
It's not going to. I'm not. You're not voting. No. It will be postponed and staying in committee.
Point of order, I do believe that if we have a motion that has been first and seconded, it can be brought forward to a vote.
Well, we'll pull Robert's Rules of Orders, and we'll see what the committee chair can do as it relates to legislation.
Fair.
Respectfully, Mr. Chairman, I think I share your goal of having this money get deployed as fast as possibly. I'm relatively ambivalent on the amendment. It was a tough decision, but if the goal is to get the money going as fast as possible, I'm not sure how delaying this legislation helps that.
Well, you're trying to recommend favorably legislation to a full body when you haven't even seen the plan of action. So no, we're not sending this to the full body. It's just that simple.
You could postpone it.
That's what I've stated. They want to carry a motion to the full body. I believe that I have the authority not to take up that vote, and we can have law figure it out later.
It still has to go to finance and rules too.
So there you go. It's already pushed out through October, the first week of October for rules. So.
Is this seriously just about the amendment?
No, it's about meeting the needs of a constituency that I represent. You, nor the aldermen from Ward 1 are fielding the legitimate concerns that residents place every single day that I've spoken to Melissa about. The sewage, the mold, the fire things, the windows, the screens, the light caps, the leaky faucets, just all of that stuff. And there are more severe issues. And it's just, I don't get it. I don't get it. So,
with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, Alderman Huntley does represent a HACA property with Bloomsbury Square. I represent the second lowest income ward in Ward 5. While I do not have HACA properties, we do have housing issues in my ward. And I am someone who has firsthand experienced what it is like to have to live in substandard housing in order to get by. I understand the sense of urgency. And if it is just genuinely, truly, you want to put forward that amendment as a body from Housing and Human Welfare to get it going, I am willing to reconvene the vote on your amendment. But I believe that holding it until after the holiday, when I think that in other committees, this will not have that same pushback. And if it does, I will, especially on rules and city government, which I am a member of, I will be very livid in those because I do understand the urgency on this. Now, we did have housing, the director of HACA say that 2 tranches is sufficient and allows an effective path forward. But if it's truly about that, I will reconvene your amendment and I will say yes on it so we can get this forward. But Mr. Chairman, I do believe holding it over that is going to hurt our ability to make an effective investment in this quickly. So,
I'm not voting. Like I said, we don't know what's in that plan of action. And so until we see that, I think it is a terrible idea for us to move forward on this.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, is it possible that we could see that plan within the next, I don't know, day or two, and then have a ad hoc session to vote on this, on your amendment and on this resolution sometime sooner than our next scheduled meeting?
Our next scheduled meeting is the 3rd Monday in October, which would be the 21st. If we could get the plan, I'd be, willing to work with our council aide and our TV crew to figure out if there's a date that we could have a special meeting. It still has to go to 2 other committees, though. So, which I believe meet in the next week or so.
So if we pledge to meet on our next meeting, I can accept that. Though I do feel that the motion on Robert's rules for a motion that was first and seconded by a majority of the committee is irregular.
I don't believe so.
Agree to disagree, Mr. Chairman. But we need to meet on the 16th or on the 21st of October. We can't dawdle on getting this resolution, because the more we dawdle on that, the longer it takes to get the funding out the door.
We will postpone it until October the 21st.
I just want to say,
and we'll have an opportunity to go over the plan of action, and we'll discuss, disbursement. Even us meeting on October the 21st will meet my November the 1 deadline. So,
Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, my suggestion was not that we reconvene on October 21st. My suggestion was that city staff send us the plan and that we have a meeting before October 21st to expeditiously approve this so it can then go to the other committees.
I prefer Alderman Huntley's plan myself.
Well, let's make a motion to postpone. I'll make a motion to postpone until a special meeting date is selected.
I shall second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And also, Harry, you're the finance chair. So it's going to your committee, and Brooks, you're on rules, and so it's going to your committee. So have fun with that, but
I look forward to championing
this thing up till January. I'm not kidding.
Mr. Chair, my goal is to accomplish this as expeditiously as possible, so the folks you represent, the folks I represent, can all get these repairs made as quickly as possible and as effectively as possible.
And while I am only a member of rules, I do intend to be a major advocate for this. I think this is a fantastic investment.
Next item on the agenda, 011-2024, which at this point can be withdrawn. Postponed because that I don't believe the policy is out of the office yet. This is a separate pot of funding. Make a motion to postpone 01124 until our next regularly scheduled meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Right.
Aye. Next item on the agenda, R3824, condemnation and possession of real property at 245 West Street. Any ifs, ands, concerns? I have an amendment.
I would like to be added as a co-sponsor of this resolution. This area is a massive gap on the street, and I look forward to doing something cool with it.
I will say the exact same thing as Alderman Chandelmeyer. I'd like to be requested to be added as a co-sponsor on this.
I'm already a co-sponsor, and I think I thought the verbiage was a bit dramatic, but hey, whatever gets the job done. I also like to propose an amendment. The amendment will be on page 2, line 42, and it will state, if the city is successful in its attempts to acquire the vacant lot at 245 West Street, the city manager will work with the Community Development Division of Planning and Zoning to create a plan for affordable units.
I will second the motion for point of discussion.
Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, with all due, as you're aware, affordable, when we put that into legislatively, has a very specific HUD-approved definition. It is for folks making 60% or less of area median income. The financing of that is very stringent, and projects have to comply with a lot of certain things, and I think it pigeonholes us for a lot of... It pigeonholed us into a site that I frankly do not know if it can actually pencil out for a capital A HUD-approved affordable project.
How could Silver Spring, on a property of about the same size, get into a public-private partnership? Because the city would own this land. This would not be owned by a by HUD or some federally subsidized agency. So how can Silver Spring get into a public-private partnership with a company, a bank, and bring in a bank, figure out the financing, build, I think it was 78 condos on a site of almost the same exact size, and all of them sold out. They were sold at like 170 and some change. The city made back its initial investment. The units were sold. They were affordable housing. The banks got paid. How can every other municipality around us figure out how to finance affordable housing? But when it comes to Annapolis, we're always like, oh, I don't know if it'll like.
Height limits, setback limits, parking. Height limits, setback limits, parking requirements. A planning commission that is getting better, but and other things can be a little bit aggressive and run things through the ringer. And then there is also just the very real thing of 78. How I'm not really particularly familiar with the project, so I don't know what Silver Spring had going for it. But
it just baffles me. I think that we have the experts, obviously in development and housing and zoning. I'm sure something can be done. Nonetheless, nobody seems to be in the housing affordability or housing quality mood tonight. So I will.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I think that is an unfair comment. I have stayed my entire career in this legislative body, being one of the biggest housing advocates. I have lost friends over this cause. I have put my career on it.
Okay.
And all, Mr. Chairman,
obviously, I'm not saying that. I said tonight. Tonight, it just seems. Tonight.
I have been the hardest fighter for the cause of housing affordability. And that is why I am very clearly stating that putting affordable housing has a specific definition that can really jeopardize the ability to take a gas station and turn it into lodging.
You're right. I totally
So I
agree.
would
It should
politely
be
request an
studios.
apology on that.
I agree with you. It should be studios rented out at $1,900 a month.
With all considering that the median rent in the city of Annapolis is $2,300 a month, according to our comprehensive plan study, that would be less than within a mile of downtown City Dock. That would be a fantastic deal, even if that was market.
It wouldn't be, because they have studios that are in severe need of remediation downtown for like 14 and some change, so it would be slightly higher. The point I'm making is that we have seen this game. I, like you, have been an advocate for affordable housing. I, like you, have shared a background in housing insufficiencies. And so my point is if we don't lock it in, who knows what it could be? Who knows what could happen? You know, so I apologize if I offended you. I did not mean to offend you. But I would like for us to work as a committee, you know, to really put teeth to some of these things. That's my biggest thing. Just like with the Spa Road resolution that we had, I just thought it was important that, you know, what we want is actually placed in the ordinance, because if the words are not there, then anything could happen. And so that's my stance. I apologize. Motion withdrawn. No further items on the agenda. Any general discussion?
Wait.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Do we wish to take a final vote on R3824?
I would like to motion to.
If you would like to make a motion, please feel free to do so.
So moved, Chairman.
I shall second Alderman Huntley's motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 You have to approve the minutes, but I'm here, so it has to just be you and Brooks.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the 7/15/24 meeting.
I shall make a motion to approve the minutes of the 7/15/24 meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Ms. Jackson, given what you just stated, I'd like to remove my motion, my support for the audit committee's minutes this morning, since I was not there for their previous meeting.
Okay.
It's a lot of learning on the job. No worries, Alderman Huntley.
The agenda is completed. It's our first meeting back, packed agenda. Obviously, everybody's passionate about housing. No hard feelings.
If I may, for point of general discussion,
please.
The week of, let me just make sure I'm pulling the flyer so I get our dates correctly. On Saturday, September 28th, we will be having our Hispanic Heritage Festival at Ward 5's own Pip Moyer Rec Center. Fun events include a luchador match and along with food trucks. And if Director Johnson is amendable, I may be luchadoring myself for a brief moment. So that'll be fun.
And Alderman Schnellmeyer, do we have a time set for that? Because I think we'd all like to see it.
Oh, yes. It begins at 12 p.m. It is from 12 to 4. And some other fun events are going to include DJ Rhea Parker. There's going to be games and crafts and community resource tables. It'll be fun for the whole family. And food trucks, man. I love food trucks.
We'll be in touch with the special meeting date for R4424.
All right.
Everybody have a great night. Be safe.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman?
Sorry. Yes. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night.